You're still on CAB for another year, right?
No, I'm done.
Oh, you're done after this? Wow, it's been 2 years.
It's already been 2 years.
You were on a very interesting
I know. Very interesting. Yeah.
Hey, guys. Okay. I think we are all set to go. So I'm going to go ahead and make my part quick so that I can pass it over to Scotty and he can pour into you guys during hopefully your lunch hour and you're able to jump on. But for those of you, I'm pretty sure most of you should know Scotty Hobbs, but if you don't, he was a coach that joined my business just under a year in, and he was something that I talked to for, gosh, like 8 or 9 months prior to coaching. And it's been really, really cool to see his evolution. He's become literally one of the top coaches in the entire network, 14-star diamond coach. He's exiting CAB, which is the Coach Advisory Board, this year. He's an executive leader. He is a Million Club member, Success Club 10 All-Star legend. Like from the day that he's become a coach till now, I don't think you've ever missed Success Club 10 ever. So he's just been the epitome of putting his head down and doing the work. And I always used to say, like, he and Melanie, as they were raising up, I'm like, these are the most consistent people I've ever seen in my entire life. It's insane. And so he's going to be talking about, would you follow you? And a lot of you guys, when you saw the title of it, you're like, dang, that's a good question. So I'm going to pass it over to Scotty. He will share his message and take it away, Scott.
Hey, thank you, Lindsay. All right, hey, everybody, I'm grateful to be here with you guys this morning. I had an amazing morning. I'll just start off with that. I did the double time workout with Ellie, Mila, and Kina with my 3 girls, which was super fun to do. And I need to modify my workouts right now as well. So it made it perfect for us to be able to do that today. And I can modify with them and get on my knees for parts of the journey. I like to call myself a storyteller. So you're going to hear a couple stories from me, and I want you to take note about kind of the way I tell stories and think about stories in your life. That's what happens when you tell a story, is that you begin to think about moments in your life where things begin to make a little more sense. I feel like that's one of my gifts. So that's what I'm going to be speaking on today as I hit this topic of, would you follow yourself, or like, would you follow you? So I want you guys to ask yourself right now, and then I'll give you some examples in just a little bit. Right now in your business, if you are one of your social media followers, you are one of your coaches, one of your downline coaches, or one of your challengers, would you follow you? Like, are you the coach that you would want if you were that person? So I'm going to ask 5 questions right now. So I want you to write them down, and we'll recap on them a little bit later. So the first question is, what is your why? That's the first one. What is your why? Number 2 is, what is your IQ? And I want you guys to write these down. Number 3 is, who do I need to associate with to grow? So number 3, who do I need to associate with to grow? Number 4, what am I willing to sacrifice? Okay, and then number 5, who is counting on you to make this happen? So these are 5 questions that you can ask yourself, because the topic of this, as we discussed in these 30 minutes, is, would you follow you? And these are 5 questions that you can kind of hold yourself accountable to and hold yourself in check to. So I'm going to tell you guys a couple of stories. I'm going to start off with the first story that happened exactly a week ago. Well, 8 days ago. I went skydiving with Gabby. And Gabby and I have been, Gabby not so much. She's the more adventurous one. I'm the more safety-oriented one. And she's always wanted to go skydiving. And I've always said, no, I'm not going to do that. Why would I jump out of a perfectly good plane? So, maybe it's like the hardest. And I talked about this on social media last week a little bit, but maybe it's like the fact that I've gone through the hardest year of my life that made this decision, where I made the decision to surprise Gabby and to do this after leadership last week. And maybe it's that fact that we've been through one of the hardest years of our life that made the brief 5-minute orientation with our tandem jumper, the 15,000-foot climb in the airplane, and inevitably the 120-mile-per-hour free fall out of a plane plummeting towards Earth, strangely exhilarating, and I had little to no fear during that whole process. But as I thought about that experience, as we were climbing in the airplane, we're thousands of feet above the Earth, And I remember looking out the window on the left, and I could see the Hoover Dam. My tandem jumper guide pointed out to me. And one thing that happens when you're experiencing something like this, whether it's fear, excitement, is you have adrenaline, and there's chemicals that are released into your brain. And, you know, I've learned this through listening to Simon Sinek, a little bit of Mel Robbins, but chemicals like adrenaline, cortisol, they start rushing through your body. And I remember the moment that the door opened up of the airplane, and we were only halfway up. We were only 7,500 feet up. We weren't even to the 15,000 feet yet. And I remember feeling these chemicals run through my body. And the first person in our group her name was Jessica. And I remember when we hit 15,000 feet, the plane slowed down, and I remember watching her drop out of sight. And within 5 seconds, my feet were dangling out the door. And within 6 seconds of sitting there, it was weird, but I threw up a shaka. Maybe it's because we're in Hawaii. I threw up a shaka, and I was dropping within 6 seconds. And it was a weird state of arousal. I was excited. I wasn't scared or nervous. Like I pictured being at the edge of this airplane. You know, when you're about to jump off a rock or something in the water, you hesitate a little bit, or you're about to do a flip on a trampoline and you hesitate. There was none of that. It just happened. And, you know, Gabby, I remember as we thought about going, she was afraid that she might pass out or faint. She's the kind, and maybe you're like this when you do a roller coaster, that one not a roller coaster, the ride at the amusement park that takes you up and then drops. Like, she literally passes out during that experience. So we were wondering if we would feel something like that. And the feeling was the furthest you could get from passing out or feeling nauseous in that case. The first thing that I noticed when my feet went out the door was it was cold. Like, I felt it. I didn't know if I was shivering from excitement or nervousness or fear or cold, but at 15,000 feet, we're about 52 degrees colder than we were on the ground. So, you know, I remember looking out, and it just didn't feel right up there. But my brain, and you guys, I'm going to circle back to this. My brain was soaked with all these chemicals. My nervous system was responding and prepping for survival. And I just remember it being terrifying. And if you've ever been skydiving, if you haven't, you've never had a relationship with heights or gravity quite like this before. And I remember in those few short seconds sitting at the door, my adrenal system like kicked into high gear because I was anticipating what was about to happen. And these high levels of cortisol, you can tell I've done a little research on this, the high levels of cortisol, the stress hormones that were released into my bloodstream, and the adrenaline levels were so high that my body experienced a stress test, or experienced something it's never experienced before. These hormones inside of my body kicked in, and, like, to be honest, I felt like I was, you know, my grizzly story, face your grizzlies, my team logo and the kind of the motto. I felt like I was going to fight a grizzly or saber-toothed tiger or something. That's how I felt. What happens in that moment when my brain's chemically soaked in that manner is my heart was beginning to stress test, and my brain was testing for aneurysms, and my kidneys for their strength. And what they say about a skydive is that your heart rate can reach over 170 beats per minute on the first jump, and your blood pressure can go to a 200 over 110. So, guys, honestly, when I was sitting up there, I couldn't feel those things happening. The only sense that I had was nervousness, excitement, and from Mel Robbins, that's the book I've been reading most recently, I associate those feelings with I feel excited. I feel excited. You watch the video and you can hear Gabby say, "I'm excited." So that's what we were experiencing. But I can tell you guys what I felt in that moment when all these things are happening. My body is responding in the way that it did in this protect itself, prepare to survive type feeling that was happening. The only thing that I couldn't feel that nervous, excited energy. I just felt the most awake that I've ever been in my life. And it was a sense of like slowed down time. I count in the video, it's 6 seconds from when I sit at the door, from when I drop out. And I remember it felt like I was looking at Gabby. I looked over my right shoulder and I waved at her, and she said, "Goodbye, sucker." And it felt like slow motion, right? In that moment. And it felt like time just literally stopped. And it happened again another time. But I did the 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. And before we knew it, we were falling out of the plane. I did one complete flip. And I remember as I did the flip, I saw the airplane. I saw the next person's legs, and it seemed like the propeller was moving in slow motion. And remember, I'm dropping at 120 miles per hour. So, you know, it was 45 seconds dropping at that speed, but it seemed to me like milliseconds at time, and at times it felt like like time was paused and stopped. But I remember when the parachute like deployed, I felt an immense gratitude and joy. It's like a feeling I've never experienced before. And guys, I wouldn't say I'm afraid of heights, but I'm a little afraid of heights, like of that height. But when that parachute deployed, I'm still thousands of feet above earth, but there was no fear. There was no sense of fear, no sense of falling, no sense of fear of heights. And like the feeling that I had as we were floating above the Hoover Dam, looking, you could see the city of Las Vegas. I felt like this thing, like that we were meant to soar in this life. And that's the way that I think about it. And I watched back on that video a couple times. I believe there's some self-discoveries for me and maybe for you in that moment or in that experience, is that when you think about moments in your life, when you do something that's scary, when you do something that's hard, guys, you think about that moment, you think about the complete fear that you have, and then you think about your natural God-given ability to act, and then think to yourself that perhaps nothing will ever be too hard again. Okay. And so I kind of had that experience jumping out of the airplane. But previously I never wanted to jump out of an airplane. And so why did I want to do that next hard thing or that next thing that seemed super scary to me? And I told you I was going to tell you guys a few stories, but I think about a hard story in my life is like I said before that jump, the previous year has been one of the hardest years of our lives, not just with business, but with family, with everything. And not to go into too much details about the hardness or the difficulty of the story, is basically there was a point in my life last year where I had sort of this vision or something was shown to me about my life. And it goes back to the compound effect or the slight edge or any of these books that you might be reading. And I remember having this feeling that I passed away. This was last year, and it was actually last November. It's crazy enough. It'll be a year since that time. But I remember dying in this vision or this dream. I wasn't asleep because I was sitting right here in my office. I kind of dazed out. But I remember sitting there thinking like I'd passed away, and I was at the pearly gates, or however you want to call it, standing before God. And I remember that it seemed like this, like milliseconds. And then there was Gabby, Kina, Mila, Ellie, Poppy, and Malik. All 5 of my kids and my wife were standing there with me. And my whole life was shown to me. My whole entire life, everything that I'd done, the good stuff along with the bad stuff. And I remember in that moment that there was things in my life that were not aligned with the principles that I was supposed to be following and the principles that I said that I was supposed to be doing. And it was in that moment where I realized in this vision or this dream I had for myself and for my own life that I guess the way to briefly say it was that my consequences would have an eternal, what's the word? My consequences would have an eternal effect on me. And so in that moment, like I realized that I would not be with my family forever because of some poor choices that I had made. So I had to go through the jumping out of a plane aspect of correcting those things about my own life. And that was that was the hardest thing that I've ever had to go through in my whole life. And so previously when I say to you guys about building your business, would you follow you? So previously, like I was struggling with my business. Like, guys, I'm not a 15-star diamond. I'm not where I want to be in my life. And I always question, like Lindsay said, I'm the most hardest working, consistent person. Yes, that's true. But there were parts about me that I needed to change where if I were to be one of my customers looked at me, I would not follow my example in some areas. And that needs to be true in all areas of your life when you're asking, would you follow you? So I needed to make those changes, one of the hardest things in my life, but the best year of my life. And so that was a hard thing that I went through. So going through that hard thing, people have asked me, why did you switch from never wanting to jump out of an airplane to wanting to jump out of an airplane? And it wasn't that I wanted to, it's just that because I went through this hard thing over the past year, jumping out of an airplane didn't seem so hard at all. And so when I say at the end of that, like sometimes in your life, you're going to go through things in your life, go through a moment where maybe it's like do the 5-second rule, like Mel says, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, and you just jump and you take the leap. You make the first phone call to your prospect. You make your first Facebook Live video. You do your first Instagram story and begin that process and that habit. And you do that and you realize maybe you had a fear about that in some way, but you realize that when you do that, you have that natural God-given ability to act and realize that maybe things in life won't be so hard again. So that's some of the things that helped me realize that I could do hard things. I could continue to do hard things and become a stronger person through that aspect. So I want to tell you guys something briefly. Over the past week, and I won't go into details, but I want you guys to know, like, I think a lot of times we look at someone like Lindsay, or we look at someone like Melanie Mitro, or maybe even myself and what we have created or what we've done, and think like life must be so perfect. Now, I remember some of my friends in the beginning saying, because I hit Success Club 10 since the first month of my business, I remember some of my friends saying, Scotty, people probably, like, it seems to me like people just knock on your door and they ask you for, they just say, hey, where's your link? I want to sign up as a coach. I want to sign up as a customer. And it couldn't be further from that truth. Like, I work extremely hard doing the vital behaviors and trying to grow myself every single day. And just to show you guys that life is hard just a little bit, without going into too much detail, and I don't say this because I want sympathy, and I kind of talked to Lindsay about this yesterday on if I would be able to share on this call or not, or be able to show up for this call or not, is I'm going through, even again, one of the hardest moments of my life where, like, I'm somebody that can deal with hard things, I could deal with pain, I could deal with all these things, but I still have fear, just like any one of you guys. You know, if you have fear to invite or fear to put your story out on Facebook or any of these things, like, I'm fearful of many things as well. And it was just last Monday morning that I had a strong pain, like if a 10 out of 10 headache, and I'm saying this, I don't want sympathy. I don't want anybody to write me saying like, I feel sorry or any of that. I don't want that at all. I want this to help you guys understand a little bit about me and why I am the way I am, and maybe some areas that you can work on your life to begin to attract people that you want into your life. So Monday morning, I was in the shower a week ago today, when I was hit with sharp pain in the back of my head, in the back of my brain. And like, if a 10 out of 10, if a bad headache is a 10 and you have a 10 out of 10, that's a bad headache. That's maybe what I have once a year, maybe once. I had a 50 out of 10 and I hit the floor of the shower and I actually passed out. And I've had 3 of those incidents in the past week. So I've been talking to the doctors, and tomorrow morning I have a CAT scan. And so I'm facing an extremely hard situation. But one thing that I want you guys to know about that is, like, I didn't put that public, and I don't want to talk about that on my Facebook publicly or any of that stuff. But I did talk to my top leaders on my team and say, hey, I'm going through something hard. And I'm applying things that I'm learning to my business. And one of the things was, like Moira talked about at the leadership event, there's a walker, jogger, and a runner, like a tracker sheet for your business. I told my team, hey guys, I want you guys to know that this next week I'm going to be at a walker pace. I'm going to be doing the vital behaviors, the very minimum, and be at a walker pace as I go through this struggle and this trial. So I say that because we're all going to face some sort of trial or struggle in our business and hard times. But what are you going to do to make it through those hard times, to not unplug completely and disappear? Because I can tell you, whether it's this hard time I'm going through right now or the hard time last year that I mentioned, the one thing I can tell you that saved my life and kept me from going into poor or bad habits was the ability to read a good book, to do some sort of workout, keep my body and my mind and my physical and spiritual all aspects healthy and strong, and to stay connected with people that care about you, which is what I believe Team Beachbody is. So as you go through a hard time or a hard trial in your business, there's things what I like to call an anchor point. So write that down, an anchor point, because anchor points are going to help you. I have 2 different anchor points. One of the first ones is this one. If I ever feel, okay, I'm going to be vulnerable with you guys a little bit. I got listed as a 14-star diamond coach. I'm normally right now an 8 to 9-star diamond coach, paid rank. Last week on Thursday, I dropped one of my diamonds on my left side, and I only have 2 diamonds over there. So I went from an 8-star diamond to a 4-star diamond last week. Now we'll get that back, and I'm positive of the growth and what's going to happen. But how do I show up on Thursday and still do the best that I can to grow myself and to grow other people? And it's because of things that I call anchor points. Like, I literally took no time. Okay, I lied. I took five minutes and a little bit of like, well, shit, that happened. Like, that sucks a little bit. That's a big income drop. That's a big hit my self-belief a little bit. And there's a problem, right? But then how do I shift from there's a problem and take the focus off the problem to there's a solution and there's an opportunity? So what I do is I have what's called an anchor point. I want you to write it down. This is one of my anchor points. This is Jake. I'm going to show this to you guys. I hope you guys can see that. This is Jake. Jake lost 108 pounds. And he lost 108 pounds because he did the work. He did 21-day fix. He did the portion cups. He drank his Shakeology. He did his workouts. And he checked in and was accountable with his coach and the team. But he did that because I was brave enough and strong enough when I had people cancel Shakeology, had people reject me on Facebook or social media, had people tell me that this thing I was doing was dumb or stupid, like all these things that could have derailed me from my purpose and my path. Because I have solid anchor points, which I'll get to the other one, I'm able to stay focused on, okay, what can I do to help the next person? So when I have these things, like I need to have emotional triggers that keep me focused on the right thing. And that picture is one of them. I have it printed out. I'm going to show you the other one. This is random, but I'll be right back. Here is my other anchor point. Check out this. This is my treasure chest. This is some of the, aside from my family, this is some of the most valuable things that I can take with me. I can't take them with me from this life, but it is literally over the past 7 years, these are there's probably hundreds of thank you notes. So why do I have these? Like, I don't have much in my office, but why do I have this picture and that and what I'm going to tell you next right here in front of me? Because life is going to be hard. You're going to be faced with challenges. You're going to be faced with obstacles. You're going to be faced with choices every single day. But if you stay focused on the real reason and the real why, you're going to be able to push through those things and realize that they're just obstacles and opportunities for you to grow into the person that you are meant to be. So those are my anchor points. Write that down. Anchor points. I want you to find anchor points in your business that you can focus on. My second anchor point is, I told you I'm going to tell some stories, so I don't apologize about this because I'm proud of my story. I remember 8 months into my journey, and I'm going to cut off a bunch of things I'm going to talk about because I feel like this will be very important for you guys. Not many people know about this. I don't even know if Lindsay has heard this story, so you guys get this first. About 8 months into my journey, there's a couple things that happened, and it's going to be called the school bus story. That's many people have heard that. And then the story about that not many people have ever heard of, about me wanting to quit. And I tell people all the time, and I think about this, I would never quit Team Beachbody. I'll never quit. And that's one of the things I want to put out there first and foremost. I will always be with Team Beachbody. I've made that decision. It's not a if things get hard, I'm out, right? And that's going to go back to the 5 questions that I had you write down and ask for yourself. I'm going to tell this story about at work. One day, about 8 months into my journey, I remember putting my beanie on, putting my hoodie on, and I was working a lot of hours. If you guys have seen my sacrifices to make Beachbody a full-time income, I was worn out. I was tired. I was exhausted. I was afraid. And I was discouraged, is I guess was the word. And I had been working hard for 8 months. And guys, working hard for me, so you guys understand what working hard was 7 days a week, 5 to 6 hours a night. So if you say you're working hard and you're working like 1 hour every other day or 2 hours every other day, you're not working hard if you have big goals, right? Remember, everybody has their own goals, but I was working hard, 35, 40 hours a week on my Beachbody business, 80 hours a week at my full-time job. So 5 to 5, raised my kids from 5 to 8 alone while Gabby was at work, and then 8 to midnight, 8 to 1, I was working on my business. And 8 months in, I was exhausted. I hit Success Club 10 every single month. My income was not growing at the pace that I wanted it to. I was grateful for what I had, but I was exhausted and I was tired and I was worn out and I didn't know if I could make it any longer. And I remember calling my friend Alethea. And Alethea was a corporate member of the sales team, kind of like Arnaud and those guys that you see, Doug Moss, Arnaud. So I remember calling her and I was exhausted and I was tired. And I remember her walking me through this experience. And she said, I told her how I was feeling. And she said, Scotty, I want you to close your eyes. And guys, remember, I'm like dripping tears. And it's like Idaho cold weather, and I'm outside of a factory where there's 100 men. So I'm afraid these guys are going to see me, but I'm out walking with my hoodie on. And I remember having my phone, and she's like, I want you to picture that you have fallen into the water, and you have like chains tied around your feet, and you begin to sink. And you're sinking, and you look up at the water, and you see the ripple from where you fell in, and it begins to close. The light's there, and it begins to go dimmer and dimmer as you fall deeper and deeper into the darkness. And she's like, how do you feel? And I'm like, I'm drowning. I feel exhausted. I'm tired. Like, I don't know how much longer I can hold my breath. I don't know how much longer before I'm done. And this is the end. And I remember her saying, like, walking me through that. And I said, I felt like I'm drowning. And she said, I want you to, she's like, reach your hand up as high as you can. And I had my eyes closed, and I have tears in my, like, streaming down my face. I remember reaching my hand up. And she says, I want you to picture there's this hand that comes through the water. It ripples out again, and this arm reaches down. She's like, she told me, grab onto that hand. And so I grabbed on. I'm visualizing this as I'm walking outside of my job. And she said, the hand it's a strong arm, and it pulls you up, and you come out of the water. Your arm comes out of the water, and then your head comes out of the water, and you take that first breath. And she's like, how does that feel? Like, explain to me how you feel. And it's like, I can breathe. I feel light. I thought I was going to die. I feel like this relief, like everything's going to be okay. I can breathe. And she's like, Scotty, that is Team Beachbody. Team Beachbody is that arm reaching down to you. You feel like that, like you're drowning. And she's like, if you don't change things, you're going to continue to feel that for your entire life. You're going to experience things like that. And this is that arm reaching down, and you need to hold on to it and never let go. And so I remember that day that no matter how hard things would get, that if I held on to Team Beachbody and these 4 vital behaviors, that I would be okay, that I would be able to breathe, and I would be okay. So as I share with that is an anchor moment for me, is remembering that moment. And I'm not going to tell the school bus story right now because I know I've already gone for 30 minutes, but that is an anchor moment for me. So this picture right here, and also the story about me drowning, was an anchor moment for me in my business, for when things get hard for me. So guys, I'm gonna before I ask you these 5 questions again and hit on it really strong with you guys and be very direct with you guys, and I'm going to use an example of one of our mentors and who I believe to be the best Beachbody coach. Okay, this story happened at CAB just a week ago, just 2 weeks ago. I remember we're sitting in CAB, and there's 8 of us in the cab, and 6 of us are struggling to hit elite this year, where it's going to seem hard for us to hit elite. One of the coaches doesn't have enough team volume, and they didn't get the multiplier, and so it seems impossible to hit elite. The other 5 of us don't have our 2 new diamonds this year. I'm like actually -8 diamonds this year. So it seems impossible. And I remember Julie Vore sitting next to me, completely in tears, telling Carl how frustrated she feels that she's doing everything that she can, trying her hardest, and she doesn't feel like she's going to hit elite. And she's like one of the longest term elite coaches in the company. Like, it'll be like 8 years for her. And her and I were talking. I said, I felt the same. I don't want to miss elite. Like, I don't know how I'm going to feel if I miss that. I've been trying hard. And so she expresses to Carl this feeling that it's hard. And I'll tell you honestly, Julie and I were hoping that Carl and Jeff and Michael would say, hey, let's 6 out of 8 of you guys, some of our top leaders running the cab, are having struggle with this. Let's lower the standard. Honestly, guys, I don't know how I got to that point in my life right now, but that's what we were hoping for. And I'll never remember what Carl said. He just looked at us, and he does this thing. He this quizzical look, puts his hand on his chin, kind of squints a little bit and looks at us, and he says, I don't remember exactly what he said, so I can't quote him perfectly, but he said, you know what? He's like, we've experienced things like that too. We had this phenomenal, you've been elite for 6 straight years. Scotty, you've been elite for 5 straight years. We were the leading infomercial company, the best in the entire world. And almost overnight, we lost a $600 million business with infomercials. because nobody watches TV anymore. Nobody watches infomercials because people are on Hulu and Netflix and all social media. And he's like, and sometimes, and he just expressed that sometimes you lose like that, but that's when you innovate. He says sometimes you have to lose so that you can grow into the person that you're supposed to be, or so that you can course correct and become the team or the leader that you're supposed to be. Like sometimes you have to lose. And Julie's husband, she then reiterated that her husband said, like, you cannot, like her husband, Julie's husband, is a football coach. He's like, you can't win the Rose Bowl every single year. Sometimes you have to lose so that you can come back, you can gather yourself, reteam, come up with a better strategy, work harder, increase your belief, and come back and win again. And so it was kind of a strong leadership point for me that you never lower the standard for yourself. You never lower the bar for yourself. You just have to have your wins, yes, but also you're going to have your losses. What I want to tell you guys about that is after leadership, we talked about locking arms. Us 8 are going to lock arms, and that's going to go back to these 5 questions. We're locking arms, and we're going to fight our hardest to end the year as strong as we can, innovate, change, do the best that we can, but we're not going to go down without a fight. But we know that sometimes we might lose, and I think it's important that you guys know that sometimes you might lose as well, but you got to take the losses to be able to achieve the wins as well. So with that said, I'm going to tell you one last quick story about myself. As you look yourself in the mirror, I want you to picture yourself looking yourself in the mirror with these 5 questions that you have to tell yourself. And as I tell you this story, I want you to think about how you might have to course correct, how you might have to change your navigation just a little bit. And I'm going to tell a story about in 1979, there was a large passenger plane that had 257 people on board. I want you to think about this. Think about you as a team with 257 people on board, or 5 people on board, or whatever it is. As I tell this story, think about your life. Whether this plane analogy is you, your spouse, and your kids, whether this is you, the kids you teach in school, you and your challengers and your coaches and your customers and all that, whatever it is, I want you to relate this story and think about your life. This was in 1979. 257 were on board. They left New Zealand and they were going on a sightseeing flight to Antarctica. They were going to go to Antarctica and come back. And unknown to the pilots, someone had modified the flight coordinates by a mere 2 degrees, just two degrees. I know the National Wake Up Call this morning talked about a little bit about this, but I'm going to reiterate this. This error took place, this error of 2 degrees, placed the aircraft 28 miles to the east of where the pilot assumed they were at. So as they approached Antarctica to sightsee, the pilots descended down out of the clouds into a lower altitude to give the passengers a better look at this landscape they're going over. And both of these pilots, I want you guys to know, were extremely experienced pilots, but neither of them had made this particular flight before. They had no way of knowing that the incorrect coordinates had placed them directly in the path of Mount Erebus. Okay, so there's this mountain. It's an active volcano that rises from the frozen landscape about 12,000 feet. And as the pilots flew onward, the white of the snow covering, the white of the snow that was on this volcano, it blended with the white of the clouds above, making it appear as if they were flying over flat ground. They could not see it. And by the time the instruments sounded the warning that the ground was rising fast towards them, it was too late. And this airplane crashed into the side of the volcano, and all 259 people passed away, the 257 passengers and the pilot. And it was a terrible tragedy that was brought only by a minor error. And it was, remember, it was only 2 degrees. And so through 7 years, like of myself, of working with people, including myself, my own life, people in my own life, I've learned that the difference between happiness and misery in individuals, marriages, families, and building a business comes down to an error of only a few degrees. I want you to think about that. Complete happiness and complete tragedy can be a mere 2 degrees. So I want you to think about, suppose you're going to take off from an airport at the equator, intending to go all the way around the globe, but your course is off just by 1 degree. By the time you return to the same longitude, how far off would you be? A few miles? Maybe 100 miles? No. The answer is 500 miles off course, or 1 hour of flight time for a jet. So guys, I know that none of you guys on this call want your life to end in a tragedy, but it's too often that pilots and passengers of the sightseeing flight, as passengers of this sightseeing flight, We set out in hope that we'll be on this exciting journey, only to realize that too late, that an error of a few degrees has set us on course for a spiritual or financial disaster. So as you think about that, I think it's important to look yourself in the mirror, okay? This is going to go back to, would you follow you? I'm going to ask these questions one more time to you guys, and I'm going to give you one example. And I want this to ring true in your ears. I want you to write this down, put it on a sticky note, put it up on your computer. Whether you're leading a coach with no downline, or you're a brand new emerald, or you're brand new diamond, or you're Lindsay Matway, whatever area you're in this realm of building a Beachbody business, I want you to ask this question. If you had like a megaphone, and it was to your brain, to your mind, and every thought that came in your mind, everything that you said inside of your mind, that whether you said it intentionally or it just happens because you haven't strengthened that part of your mind yet, was projected out to the world onto your team call, would your team be excited to be on a journey with you? Would they be excited to be on this journey with you? I want you to think about that. If you had a megaphone to your mind, and every thought that you said, every single thing that you said to yourself, about your team, about your customers, about their performance was projected, would they be proud or excited to be working with you? And I believe that every single one of us, including myself right now, would say, no, there is things that I have to change. There are things that I need to change. And that if my challenger or my coach or this person or this leader heard what I literally thought about them in this moment, they would not be excited to work with me. So would you follow you? I want you to think about that. And then we're going to go over these last questions one more time. This is a series of questions I said at the beginning that you can ask yourself every night before you go to bed to become the best leader for yourself, your family, and your Beachbody following. And let's not just say Beachbody following, your entire social media and personal neighborhood following. Would their life be better if they engaged with and followed your example? Number one, what is your why? Guys, my why is very strong in the aspect of I never, ever, ever, ever in my entire life want to have to send my kids or my grandkids to a daycare ever again. I never want to have to depend on overtime hours to barely pay the bills. I don't want to have my wife, who loves being a mother, be at work for 8 hours doing something that she's not happy doing. That is my why. Number two, what is your IQ? And this one is not what you think it is when I say IQ. Your IQ is your I quit level. At what level of, what degree of, or what level of difficulty do you get to where you say, that's it, I'm out, I quit? Think about that. Look at yourself in the mirror and ask yourself, when do you quit? It would be like me looking at myself tonight and say, Scotty, at what level of difficulty do you decide that this is not worth it? That being a Beachbody coach, leading people is not worth it and you're out? Ask yourself that question, guys. And if you have a quit level, or you have a plan to be out if things don't go the way you intend, then you might as well be out right now. And that's me just saying, being straightforward. Okay. It'd be like if you are in the military and you're going into battle. I was watching a World War II film the other day, and I watched some of these leaders take their platoons into extreme fire, and they're up in the front, like waving their people to come, running forward. If you're not that person, nobody's going to follow you. So you got to be brave. You got to be courageous. You got to face your fears if you want anybody else to do the same. So what is your IQ level? Guys, I'll tell you right now, I don't have an I quit level. I've said from the beginning, I could lose everything I have, and I will still show up tomorrow and do the 4 vital behaviors and live my purpose. And my purpose is to help people grow themselves, and to grow myself and help other people grow themselves. So that's the IQ level. Ask yourself that. Be honest with yourself. Number 3, who do I need to associate with today to grow? Too often, as you start to grow your business, you're going to spend all your time with people that are further behind in life than you, which is important because you're going to help those people, and that's our job and our role. But you also need to be with people who are ahead of you, that are going to help you grow, that are going to challenge you to grow. So mine, for example, is I'm teaming up with other CAB members who some of them are doing better than me, some of them are at the same place as me, but we're going to help each other grow. Okay. Number 4, what am I willing to sacrifice? I'm not going to go into that because I have a whole video on sacrifices needed to make Beachbody a full-time income. But some of the sacrifices, just so I can show with you guys, as I look myself in the mirror and say, what do you need to sacrifice? I needed to sacrifice my own, for the direction that my life was heading during my hard time in the last year. I needed to sacrifice my own desire and passion to play music, because it was not taking me in the place that I needed to be as a father and a husband, and also as a coach leader. I was not associating with people that helped me grow, and I was not growing myself in the way that I needed to be. So I needed to sacrifice that personal desire to do that thing. And so I think it's important that you look at your own life and say, what do I need to sacrifice in order, what am I willing to sacrifice so I can be the best coach, leader, and mentor? So I can look at myself and say, like, I would follow myself. I would follow and be the person that I am. So the last question is who is counting on you to make it happen? This is the part that I'm going to just be very blunt and bold as a coach. This is the part that pisses me off the most. And I don't get upset, but it makes me so mad when I see somebody that says they're gonna help somebody, they're all in, and they help some people, and things get hard for them personally as the leader, and they quit, and they leave those people hanging. They gave those people hope. They breathed hope into them. They breathed that inspiration into them and said, I'm gonna be here for you and be the example for you. And then when they quit, they go out and leave those people hanging by themselves. That makes me the most upset. Because guys, if you quit, honestly, it's only about, you're being selfish, and it's only about you. It's only about you in that instance and in that case. So I think it's important that every single night when you go to bed, you ask yourself these 5 questions. You ask yourself, you hold yourself accountable. And if you can get dialed in on that, you can become the best version of yourself. And I'm going to give you guys one last story, and I promise that I'm out. So you guys can get back to your inviting. I had an instance where one of my leaders, and maybe you feel like this right now, and that's why I'm having this feeling and inclination to share this out of nowhere, is I had a pretty strong diamond coach that hits Success Club every single month message me one day and say, I'm not going to do this anymore. I'm going to do my own thing. I'm going to stay signed up as Beachbody, but I'm not going to sign people up as challengers. I'm not going to sign coaches, because I feel like I'm the only one that's creating success on my team, and nobody on my team is successful. And inside of myself, he said, I can't ethically share this coach opportunity with anybody because it doesn't work for any of them. And I'm the only one seeing success. So I'm going to go do my own thing. Okay. Stopped working. Okay. This is where I'm going to maybe punch you guys in the throat a little bit if you feel like that. Many times in life, we look at the too big of a picture, and this is where I believe we, as all of us, need course correction, including myself, is to recognize and celebrate the small successes of someone changing their life. Okay? Like Jake here. I can tell you guys, Jake has never made a single dollar as a Beachbody coach, but his life is completely different. So is he successful or is he not successful? Right? Success is each person's success is so different. The definition of success to everybody is so different. The example I'm going to use is not Jake, though. This specific coach that said, I'm not going to do this anymore, I started working with his downline coaches, some of them, right, that reached out to me, and I reached out to them. And I got on the phone with this girl, and she was a little bit frustrated that her coach had, I guess, would be abandoned her. But she knew that I was there as her upline. And I was like, tell me how Beachbody's changed your life. Because I never talked to her on the phone before. I was like, tell me how Beachbody's changed your life. And she shared with me this story about how she had lost over 70 pounds. She had the courage, because of being a Beachbody coach and the help that she got from, and the encouragement she got from her coach, she had the courage to go on stage at the Beachbody Classic and compete where she looked nowhere near like any of the other competitors. She had no abs. She was still overweight, not ready for the competition, but she had the courage to get in a bikini, get up on stage, and be proud of what she had accomplished. And I was like, wow, that's incredible. Like, that's so powerful. You are so successful in your journey so far. And then I asked her another question. What has Beachbody done for you financially? Because I didn't know. And she's like, I just remember she broke down into tears on the phone with me. And she's like, I don't know what I would do without Beachbody and without this business that I have. And I was like, okay, tell me about it. What has it done for you? How much do you make? I want to kind of understand so I can help you with your goals. And she's like, I only make about $300 to $500 a month. And I was like, really? And what does that mean for you? What does that $300 to $500 mean for you? And she said, it means, with I'm a single mother, and with the little child support I have and the little $500 that I have, when I had my baby as a single mother, I didn't have to go back to work. And I stayed home this entire past year with my baby. I didn't have to send her to a daycare. I was able to be home and raise my baby myself, and I could take care of the basic necessities that I needed. And I know that $300 to $500 is not that much, but it allowed me to stay home. And I know that if I made $300 to $500, that I can grow that to $600, that I can grow that to $700, and I can continually improve my life in that aspect. And I think about that story, and she was in tears. How many times are we as leaders missing the bar on what success means? And we're projecting, maybe you have this idea to be a full-time coach or to pay off $100,000 of medical school debt or whatever it is, but we're missing the blessing of the small, small but yet significant changes that are happening in people's lives. And we're being selfish and thinking only about ourselves and only about our own goals, and not actually how Beachbody is transforming people's lives. And you're going to miss those things if you don't ask yourself these 5 questions every single day, but then ask your people what it is that they're actually want out of their life, not projecting your goals onto them, what they want, and how to help them get that, and then helping them celebrate those small successes and those wins along the way. Because I can tell you guys, like, yes, we've built an incredible business, but I will never be as grateful as I remember my first $300 paycheck for a week. And I remember getting up from my desk at work and telling my coworker, look at this. Because that $300 equaled, if I continued that, not having to send my wife to work and being able to cut back my overtime hours and not work on a Saturday anymore. So remember the small successes. Stay focused on the small wins, because the small wins compounded across all the people that you can help is what's going to help you achieve your goals that are slightly larger than that small win. But you have to hold tight. That's an anchor point to that small win, to that small blessing. So that's all that I wanted to share with you guys today. And I want to say thanks to Lindsay for letting me share with you guys.
Seriously, what an amazing call. I wrote down your questions, and I'm actually going to use them myself to be able to self-evaluate, because he's right. No matter what level you're at, that megaphone analogy is true. If you are to have those things broadcast, we all have areas that we have to work on. And I know that Scotty's a big advocate of the difference that personal development makes, and I'm the same way. I mean, guys, right before this call, to get myself in state to be able to feel passionate because I'm dealing with beginning of pregnancy, I have to listen to, I wish you guys could see my YouTube, it's just motivational video after motivational video after motivational, because that's all I listen to, throughout the day, to be able to get to the place where I'm like, okay, this is the kind of state that I want to attract coaches to. This is the kind of person that could change lives. And so anyway, Scotty, amazing call. So many awesome stories. We're going to be praying for you, for your results. Hopefully it's just that you got twisted around in that skydive. But I'm just happy to see you're still here. I got a little nervous when you told me before. But thank you guys for being on. I know this was like a midday call, which is a little more difficult for people to join on. So if you're listening to the recording, good on you for doing that. I'm sure you found it just as impactful as I did. So Scotty, have an amazing day, guys. I will see you again next week.